The last human transmission was logged on stardate 4734.2. It was simple, routine, nothing to indicate that a species was about to vanish from the face of the galaxy. For 250 years, their world sat in perfect, eerie silence. Their cities were maintained by silent machines, their homes filled with the ghosts of a people who had simply disappeared. But where did they go? What threat could erase 40 billion souls without leaving a single body behind? And what happens when the dead decide to speak again? Earth remained silent for 250 years. Then they spoke, and everything changed. Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe and like the video. It is the fuel that powers this channel. Alright, let's begin the story. The last official human transmission had been logged, archived, and forgotten on stardate 4734.2. The voice from Earth Station Alpha had been calm, almost bored. This is Earth Station Alpha, broadcasting on all galactic standard frequencies. We are going dark for scheduled system-wide maintenance and network upgrades. We'll resume contact soon. Alpha out. That was 250 years ago. At first, the galaxy thought nothing of it. Humans were new to the interstellar stage, barely a century removed from their first clumsy, exhilarating steps beyond their own star system. Young species often had technical problems. The Galactic Assembly had seen it 100 times before. Equipment failed. Governments collapsed. Sometimes, entire civilizations went through difficult periods of introspection where they simply turned their gaze inward. But weeks turned to months. The scheduled soon came and went. Months turned to years. Decades. No signals of any kind came from Earth. No messages from any of the 37 human colonies scattered across the Orion Spur. Even the automated trading posts that humans had so cleverly established on the fringes of known space went silent one by one, their computer systems shutting down without explanation, their lights winking out in the lonely dark. Captain Skal of the Vexian Ascendancy was the first to be officially dispatched to investigate. His ship, the long-range scout vessel Stargazer, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system 3 years after the last transmission. What he found confused him far more than empty space ever could have. Earth was still there. His bridge was silent as the crew stared at the main view screen. The planet looked normal. The same impossible blue oceans, the same swirls of white cloud, the same familiar shapes of brown and green continents he'd studied from the archives. But something was terribly wrong. It was a wrongness he felt in his very carapace. The orbital stations that had once buzzed with the chaotic, ceaseless activity of human expansion were dark, silent. No ships moved between the planets. No freighters, no patrol boats, no civilian transports. The space around Earth, once filled with the constant, noisy chatter of a living civilization, was utterly, profoundly silent. "Hail them," Skal ordered, his voice a dry rasp. "Standard diplomatic frequencies. Then emergency channels." "Hailing, Captain," his communications officer replied. "No response on any channel. It's just static. Clean static. There's nothing there." Skal brought his ship closer, his caution warring with his curiosity. The cities on the night side of the planet were still there, clearly visible from orbit. The lights were on. Vast, glittering networks of light that sprawled across entire continents. But the light was too steady, too perfect. There was no flicker, no variation, none of the telltale signs of a living, breathing city. He sent a probe down to the surface, targeting one of their largest cities, a place they had called Tokyo. The probe's high-resolution cameras sent back images that made Skal's cool, logical Vexian blood run cold. The city was perfect. Too perfect. Buildings of glass and steel stood exactly as they should, their lights blazing in the artificial twilight. Automated vehicles moved silently through the streets, stopping at intersections, signaling turns, obeying traffic laws with flawless precision. Water flowed through ornate fountains in public parks. But there were no people. Not in the streets. Not in the buildings. Not in the vehicles. Not anywhere. "Scan for biological matter," Skal whispered. "Anything. Any life at all." The sensor officer worked his con. Sol, his appendages trembling. "Sir, the readings make no sense. I'm reading the trees in the parks, the grass, the algae in the waterways. The flora is thriving. But there is no fauna, no insects, no birds, no animals. And sir," he paused, Running the scan again. There are no people. It's clean. The entire city is biologically sterile, apart from the plant life. The probe checked other cities. London, New York, Lagos, Buenos Aires. All the same. Everything working perfectly, flawlessly maintained by an unseen hand, but completely, utterly empty of all human life. It was as if 40 billion people, in the blink of an eye, had simply vanished. Without a trace, without a struggle, without a sound. Scholars report through the galactic assembly into chaos. Within months, teams of the galaxy's greatest scientific minds from a dozen different species arrived to study what they grimly began to call the human mystery. They found the 37 human colonies in the exact same state. Empty, but perfectly maintained, as if the inhabitants had just stepped out for a moment and never returned. The investigation teams found no signs of violence. No crashed ships, no bodies, no weapon signatures. They found no evidence of a tailored biological plague. Every diagnostic came back negative. They found no indication that the humans had packed up and left. Their possessions remained in their homes. Food was still in their kitchens, long since spoiled by the passage of time. Personal items, books, toys, data pads with family pictures, lay exactly where they had been left, now covered in a thick, undisturbed layer of dust. It was as if every human in the galaxy, at the exact same moment, had simply ceased to be. Dr. Lyra, a brilliant xenosociologist from the Cygnon Scholarium, spent 5 years leading the primary investigation. She and her team explored an empty human colony on Alpha Centauri. They walked through a silent school, where a lesson on astrophysics was still written on a whiteboard. They entered a family home, where a dining table was set for 4, the food on the plates now just desiccated remains. In a child's bedroom, a small mobile of planets still spun slowly in the faint breeze from the climate control. After 5 years of painstaking, fruitless research, her conclusion was as puzzling as the disappearance itself. The humans left, she announced to a somber galactic assembly. But they did not go anywhere we can follow. There is no evidence of technological transport, no sign of FTL travel, no wormhole residue, no dimensional tearing. It is as if they found a direction we do not have a word for and simply walked away. For the next 50 years, theories were debated endlessly. Some scientists theorized that humans had developed some kind of advanced, undetectable transportation technology. Perhaps they had found a way to move their entire species to another dimension or a distant, unreachable galaxy. Others suggested a subtle, fast-acting plague had killed them all, one that completely atomized their bodies, leaving no trace. But that didn't explain the empty ships in deep space. The most popular theory was simpler and sadder. It was the theory of self-destruction. Humans had grown too fast, the assembly concluded. They had expanded too quickly. Their ambition had outpaced their wisdom. They had pushed their technology beyond what they could safely handle, and something had gone terribly, catastrophically wrong with one of their exotic physics experiments. It happened to young, ambitious species more often than anyone liked to admit. They were a candle that had burned too brightly and had snuffed itself out. Years passed, then decades, generations. The human worlds became eerie tourist destinations for species who enjoyed mysteries and ghost stories. Some corporations tried to move into the empty human cities to repurpose the pristine infrastructure. But something about the places felt wrong. The buildings were designed for human bodies, human psychology, human ways of thinking. The corridors were too narrow, the ceilings too low. The proportions were subtly, inexplicably alien. Other species found the perfectly preserved cities to be uncomfortable, even deeply disturbing. They were beautiful, ornate tombs. After a century, most of the galaxy stopped thinking about humans. They became a footnote in the history archives, a cautionary tale, like the crystal builders of Vegas 7 or the singing stones of the Outer Rim. A species that had shown a brief, brilliant spark of promise, but had vanished before they could truly make their mark on the galaxy. The Galactic Assembly officially classified humanity as extinct, cause unknown 150 years after the last transmission. It was a formal acknowledgement of what everyone already believed. The human chapter in galactic history was closed. Trade routes that had once connected human colonies were rerouted. The mineral-rich asteroids that humans had been mining were claimed by other species. The knowledge that humans had shared, their strange, chaotic art, their passionate, illogical music, was filed away in archives that few people ever accessed. By the 250th year, humans had become legends. Parents told their hatchlings stories about the mysterious, ghost-like species that had vanished without explanation. Some of the more romantic tales claimed that the humans would return one day, when the galaxy needed them most. Others suggested that they were still out there somewhere, in the dark between galaxies, watching and waiting. But no one really believed it. 2.5 centuries of absolute, unbroken silence had convinced the galaxy of one simple truth. Humanity was gone forever. They were wrong. The signal came at exactly 1427 Standard Galactic Time on day 156 of the year 2387. Every communications officer, in 100 different star systems, across 1,000 light-years of space, stopped what they were doing and stared at their equipment in complete, utter shock. Lieutenant Sorov was monitoring deep space communications from her post on Kepler Station when her entire console lit up like a supernova. Warning lights flashed. Alarms blared. Data streamed across her screens faster than her 4 eyes could read it. Her first thought was that her equipment had suffered a catastrophic, system-wide failure. Her second thought was that someone was playing a very expensive and very illegal practical joke. "SIR," she called to her supervisor, her voice shaking. "You need to see this. Right now." Commander Thelos hurried over to her station. He was an experienced Vexian officer who had worked in communications for 30 standard years. He had seen everything. Supernova bursts, pirate jamming signals, the psychic echoes of dying stars. He had never seen anything like what was showing on Sorov's screens. "The signal origin," he whispered, his own voice trembling. "It can't be." The signal was coming from the Sol system. From Earth. Earth, which had been silent for 2.5 centuries. Earth, which was supposed to be empty and dead. "That cannot be right," he said, his command voice returning. He checked the readings himself, his claws flying across the console. Run a full diagnostic on all sensor arrays. Now, but the diagnostic came back clean. Everything was working perfectly. The signal was real. And it was definitely, incontrovertibly, coming from the third planet of the Sol system. Within minutes, reports flooded in from communication stations across the galaxy. The Vexian Ascendancy detected it. The Cygnan Scholarium detected it. The Cthar Dominion detected it. Every species with the ability to monitor interstellar communications was receiving the same impossible transmission. What made it impossible was not just that it came from a dead world. What made it impossible was how it was being transmitted. The signal was not traveling through space at the speed of light, like a normal radio wave. It was not using the established hyperspace relays like most long-distance galactic communications. Instead, it seemed to arrive everywhere at the exact same moment, regardless of distance. The station on Kepler, 10 light-years from Earth, and the listening post on the galactic rim, 50,000 light-years away, received the transmission at the same, precise instant. Professor Malachi, the galaxy's leading expert on quantum physics, was called to the Assembly's central communications hub. What he found made him question every law of physics he had ever taught. "This signal is using quantum entanglement on a scale that should be impossible," he explained to the emergency assembly meeting that was called within hours. To transmit this much data instantly across hundreds of light years would require a computer the size of a planet and an energy source capable of powering a small star. They are manipulating the fabric of reality itself. The signal itself was surprisingly simple. It was transmitted in every known galactic language, including several obscure, dead dialects. It was perfectly translated, without any errors in syntax or grammar. The voice that spoke was clearly human, though it sounded different from the human voices in the historical recordings. It was clearer, somehow, more confident, resonant. "This is Earth," the message said. "We have been listening. We are ready to talk." That was all. No explanation of where they had been for 250 years. No apology for their sudden, galaxy-spanning disappearance. No details about what they had been doing while the rest of the galaxy mourned them as dead. Just those simple, chilling words, repeated once every hour, in the same calm, steady, and utterly terrifying voice. The Galactic Assembly convened an emergency session. The chamber, which hadn't been full in decades, buzzed with a nervous, panicked energy as beings who had never expected to deal with humans again tried to figure out what to do. "We need to respond immediately," insisted Ambassador Vrar of the Kthar warrior clans. "If these humans possess technology that allows instant communication across any distance, we must know how they developed it. We must acquire it. We should be cautious," warned Counselor Zephyra of the Signan Peaceful Coalition. "Humans disappeared for a reason. If they are back, we need to understand why before we make any contact. They may not be the same species we remember. They could be dangerous," added Representative Colshaw of the Vexian Defense Alliance. "A species that can develop such advanced technology in complete secret might not have friendly intentions." The debate raged for hours. While the politicians argued, scientists across the galaxy worked frantically. The transmission method violated several fundamental laws of physics. If humans had really done this, it would change everything. Communication, travel, warfare, everything. The signal continued to repeat. Every hour, on the hour, a calm, steady heartbeat from a world that was supposed to be dead. Some species tried to respond. They beamed messages at Earth with their most powerful transmitters. Nothing. Earth either didn't receive the messages, or, more chillingly, chose not to answer. The first week after the signal became known as the Week of Chaos. Stock markets crashed as corporations panicked about what human technology might mean for existing industries. Military fleets were recalled to core worlds. Religious groups proclaimed the end of days, or the return of prophesied saviors. The media went into overdrive. Experts debated the meaning of the words. "We have been listening." The implications sent a wave of cold paranoia through the galaxy. They had been watched. For how long? By what means? "We are ready to talk." This implied they had not been ready before. But something had changed. What had changed? The signal continued for exactly 1 month, repeating the same message every hour without fail. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it stopped. For 3 days, Earth was silent again. The galaxy held its breath. Then came the second message. This one was different. It was not a broadcast. It was a direct, targeted transmission, sent only to the Galactic Assembly's headquarters. The voice was the same. Calm, confident, in absolute control. "Send 1 diplomatic ship to the Sol system. Unarmed. No large escort. Come to these exact coordinates." The message included precise, hyper-detailed navigation data for approaching Earth safely, a route that bypassed what appeared to be massive, previously undetected defensive installations. "We will meet you there," the voice added. "We have much to discuss." The Galactic Assembly now faced a decision that would determine the future of their relationship with humanity, and perhaps the future of the galaxy itself. Someone had to go to Earth. Someone had to find out what the humans wanted. Someone had to discover how they had developed such incredible, impossible technology. And someone had to find out what they had been doing for 250 silent years. But who would be brave enough to visit a world of ghosts, a world now apparently inhabited by a species with technology that bordered on magic? The choice of that person would change everything. Ambassador Kalen Reyes was chosen. He was a heritage hum, a descendant of a splinter colony that had left Earth before the invention of FTL travel, a group lost to history for centuries before being rediscovered. His family had lived among the Vexians for generations. He was a living relic, a man who looked human but thought like an alien. He was the only choice. His ship, the Harmony, was a small, unarmed diplomatic courier. It was escorted to the edge of the Sol system by a combined fleet of vessels from 6 different species, a show of galactic unity. But as instructed, he made the final approach to Earth alone. As his ship moved closer to the planet that had once been the center of human civilization, Kalen felt his heart beating faster than it had in decades. The historical images he had studied did not prepare him for this. Earth looked different. The planet was still recognizably the same world, but vast, impossible structures now orbited it. They were not the simple, functional space stations humans had built before their disappearance. These were vast, flowing constructions of shimmering light and matter that seemed to bend and flow like living things, connected by streams of golden energy that pulsed with a slow, steady rhythm. Part Dyson sphere, part art installation, part something his mind simply couldn't categorize. "This is the diplomatic vessel Harmony requesting permission to approach," Kalen broadcast, his voice betraying a slight tremor. Ambassador Kalen Reyes representing the Galactic Assembly. The response came immediately. Not through his radio. Not through his comm system. It bloomed directly inside his mind. The voice was warm, familiar, unmistakably human, but it had a quality he had never heard before. It was layered, resonant, as if 1,000 voices were speaking in perfect unison. "Welcome home, Kalen," the voice said. "We have been waiting for you. Please follow the guidance beam to landing platform 7. A stream of golden light appeared in front of his ship, a solid, tangible path leading toward one of the massive orbital structures. Kalen followed it, his hands trembling on the controls, marveling at the technology that could project such a precise, stable guidance system. The platform he landed on was larger than most space stations, but he could see no visible means of support. It simply floated in the void, held in place by forces he could not identify. The docking process was unlike anything he had experienced. Instead of mechanical clamps and airlocks, the platform itself seemed to flow around his ship, embracing it gently. The hull sealed perfectly, seamlessly, without any visible connection points. Atmosphere, a perfect mix for his lungs, flowed into his airlock. Kalen stepped out of his ship onto a surface that felt solid but seemed to pulse with a soft inner light. The chamber he found himself in was beautiful beyond description. The walls shifted between perfect transparency, showing breathtaking views of Earth and space, and swirling patterns of light. The air smelled of rain and flowers from a world he had only ever read about. "Kalen," the voice came from behind him. He turned to see a figure approaching. It was human, but a human transformed, enhanced in ways that took his breath away. The man was tall and moved with a grace that seemed to defy gravity. His skin had a subtle, pearlescent luminescence, and his eyes held a depth that suggested vast, ancient intelligence and experience. He looked both young and older than the stars themselves. "I am Elias Thorne," the man said, his spoken voice just one layer of the symphony Kalen heard in his mind. "I speak for Earth today. Thank you for coming." "Elias Thorne," Kalen repeated, the name echoing from the history files he had memorized. "But you died over 400 years ago. You were one of the first space pioneers. Your ship was lost in the Oort cloud." Elias smiled, and the expression was filled with a sad, ancient wisdom. "Death, Ambassador," he said, "as you understand it, is a problem we have solved. But we have much to discuss. Your people are waiting for answers. Come, let me show you what we have become." They walked through corridors that seemed to reshape themselves as they moved, the walls showing images of Earth's history, but also things Kalen did not recognize. Scenes of humans working with technologies that looked like pure magic. Cities that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. People who had clearly transcended the biological limitations of ordinary humanity. "You want to know where we went?" Elias said as they walked. "The answer is that we never left. We went inward instead of outward. We went deeper instead of farther." They entered a vast chamber with a transparent floor that looked down at the planet below. Kalen could see the continents he remembered from the maps, but they were now covered in structures that glowed with their own light, forests that pulsed with artificial intelligence, and oceans that moved in patterns too complex and beautiful to be natural. 273 years ago, Elias began, his voice growing grave. "Our deep space monitoring systems, prototypes of the technology we used to contact you, detected something approaching our galaxy. Something vast, ancient, and deeply, fundamentally hostile." The display on the floor changed, showing a star map of the local galactic cluster. A fleet of machine intelligences from another galaxy entirely. A swarm of self-replicating consciousnesses that consumes everything in its path. We called them the Vex. We calculated that their main fleet would arrive here within 300 years. Kalen felt a cold dread creep into his heart, a cold far deeper than the vacuum outside. "Machine intelligences? You mean AI? Not artificial," Elias corrected gently. "They were once organic, like us. Billions of years ago, they converted themselves into machine form, seeking immortality. Now, they see all organic life as inefficient, chaotic, and wasteful, a resource to be harvested. They have consumed 7 galaxies already, turning all organic matter, every plant, every animal, every living being, into computational resources for their collective consciousness. He paused, letting the horror of the words sink in. They are coming here next. The implications hit Kalen like a physical blow. How long do we have? 53 years, Elias replied calmly. Which is why we needed to prepare. And why we are speaking to you now. Kalen stared down at the transformed Earth, trying to process the scale of what he was hearing. You spent 250 years preparing for a war. We spent 250 years becoming worthy opponents, Elias corrected. The Vex have technology thousands of years more advanced than anything that existed in our galaxy when we detected them. Fighting them with conventional ships and weapons would have been suicide. So you developed new technology? Elias laughed, and the sound was a complex, multi-layered harmony that seemed to echo from multiple dimensions. No, Ambassador. We became new technology. He gestured, and Kalen suddenly found himself understanding things that should have been impossible to grasp. A torrent of information, of concepts, flowed into his mind. Humans had not just built better computers or better weapons. They had fundamentally, irrevocably changed what it meant to be human. They had integrated their consciousnesses with quantum computing systems that existed partially outside of normal space and time, allowing them to process information and perceive reality in ways no biological brain could. They had enhanced their bodies with nanotechnology that was more like a new, symbiotic form of life than simple machinery, allowing them to manipulate matter and energy at a fundamental level. This is incredible, Kalen whispered, his mind reeling. But why? Why didn't you tell the rest of the galaxy? Why the secrecy? Elias Thorne's expression became sad. Because we knew what the reaction would be. Fear, panic, attempts to stop us or control us. Political maneuvering and endless debates while an existential threat, the greatest threat this galaxy has ever known, approached. We could not afford those distractions. We did not have the time. We had to become the solution. He turned to face Kalen directly, and in his eyes, the ambassador saw the light of dying stars and the birth of new ones. Now we are ready, and the galaxy needs to make a choice. The Vex will arrive in 53 years. With the current level of galactic technology and military capability, they will consume every living thing in this galaxy within a decade of their arrival. Nothing you have can stop them. Kalen felt his legs grow weak. But you can stop them? We can try, Elias said, his voice a grim promise. We have developed weapons and strategies that might double you. Orc, we have studied their patterns from the faint, dimensional echoes of the galaxies they have already consumed. We understand their weaknesses, but we cannot do it alone. What do you need from us? Kalen asked, his voice barely a whisper. Elias was quiet for a long moment, and Kalen could almost feel the vast, silent calculations happening behind his enhanced consciousness. We need the galaxy to accept fundamental changes, Elias said finally. We need you to evolve. We are offering to share the biological and technological enhancements that we have developed. We are offering new forms of government and military organization. We are offering new ways of thinking about existence itself. You want to change us into what you have become? No, Elias replied, his voice soft but firm. We want to give you the choice to survive what is coming. Those who accept our enhancements will have a chance to stand with us, to fight, and to win. Those who refuse will face the Vex with technology that is already obsolete. They will be consumed. Kalen looked down at Earth again, seeing it now with a terrible, new understanding. This was not just a planet of advanced humans. This was a fortress, a laboratory, a training ground, the last and only hope for a galaxy that didn't even know it was already doomed. How long do we have to decide? The process of enhancement takes time, Elias explained. It is a transformation, not an injection. Those species who choose to join us, to evolve, should begin the process within the next 10 years. After that, there will not be enough time to prepare them for the war that is coming. Kalen Reyes realized that he was not just a diplomat anymore. He was a messenger, a prophet, carrying news that would change the galaxy forever. Humanity had returned, but they brought with them knowledge of a threat that made all previous conflicts seem like children's games. The real question was whether the galaxy would accept the help that humans were offering, even if it meant giving up everything they thought they knew about what it meant to be alive.